You're listening to the Church on the Move podcast. We hope this message is encouraging, it's inspiring, and it challenges you to take your next step with Jesus. Thanks for listening. Let's check it out.
For the last couple of months, my family and I, my wife Summer, my kids Jane and Charlie, we have been summering in Palm Springs, California. My wife is from that area. She's from Palm Desert, and it's all kind of the same. If you don't know where it is, it's about 100 miles east of Los Angeles, and it's absolutely beautiful. There are mountains surrounding the valley there. There are palm trees. It's the desert, but there's an oasis, so it's green grass, and it's very manicured. It is an incredible place, but it's still the desert, and the desert is hot. And the time that you want to avoid the desert is at the time that we decided to go. And so we get there at the beginning of June, and it's beautiful for like 2 or 3 days, and then there's a record heat wave that decides to show up on the West Coast. I don't know if you feel it here. I know that it's hot here, but I walked outside yesterday, and I was like, it feels pretty good. It was 100, and the humidity is high, but it felt good compared to what I've been living in. It has been averaging around 115 degrees. It's got up to 123 degrees. They say it's a dry heat, but that's crap. Once you get in the 120s, you're not in hell, but you're in the parking lot, right? Like, you're in line for the tram, just ready to go on in. And we've been out there, and one of these beautiful, beautiful, hellish days, I decided to get up and go to the gym. I went to work out there at Planet Fitness because it's a judgment-free zone, and there comes a point, you know, in your life and in your physique where you need that. You know, you need that. And you go into Planet Fitness, and it's all purple, and then there's no judgment. So it's basically like the redeemed church. I don't know how they figured out how to eradicate judgment, but apparently no one's judging me. I worked out, and I was walking out, and I got in my car. I'm sitting in my car. I'm about to leave. And I look up, and there's a man walking out of the business next to the gym. And he's a younger guy, looks like he's in his late 20s, maybe early 30s. And he's walking out, and I notice him because he's not wearing any shoes. He has on high white socks, but no shoes. Wearing shorts, a t-shirt, and I'm like, what is going on? And it doesn't take me long to deduce that he's homeless. He's homeless, and he had probably gone into this storefront to use a restroom or to ask for water. And he's walking out, and he's walking kind of by my car, and I'm watching him walk, and he's walking like this. And I'm trying to figure out, is he hurt, or is it just the heat from the asphalt? If you can fry an egg on the pavement, I promise you it's hot without shoes. And so he's gingerly walking across this parking lot, and I'm watching him, and I'm thinking, this is unacceptable. This isn't right. I don't care how he got in this situation. I don't care what decisions he's made. He needs shoes. And I watch him walk across the parking lot, and he goes up to the sidewalk where the main road is, and he begins to walk down that sidewalk, and I think, I've got to go buy him some shoes. So I zip out of the parking lot and go to a shoe store across the road, and I go in, I'm looking for, I'll be honest, I'm looking for something cheap, right? Like, I want to be good, I want to be kind, but I'm also like, I don't want to spend a fortune. You know, I mean, how picky could he be? I'm just letting you in on my process. And so I'm going through, and I see some slides, like some athletic slides, and I think, okay, I don't know what size shoe he is. He's about 5'10"-ish, so I'm thinking 11 will be good. So I get him some slides and some new white socks, because the ones that he was wearing were trash. And so I buy him some stuff, and I get in my car, and I hunt him down, and I find him. He's sitting at a bus stop there, and he's got a half-empty water bottle, and he's eating some crackers that someone must have given him. And so he's just mowing down these crackers. I pull over, and I'm like, hey, man. And he's like, hey, what's up? And I'm like, hey, I bought you some shoes. And he's like, oh, man, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And you never know what you're going to get with people who are homeless. You don't know how far gone are they. And is it some people I've talked to, and I've talked to a lot of homeless in my time, and a lot of them I talk to, I can't understand them very well, that they aren't really all that coherent. And in this case, he was half with me and half somewhere else, and I couldn't tell, is he high? I don't know, but I don't really care. He needs shoes. And so I'm like, hey, man, I bought you some shoes and some socks. And he's like, thank you. And he's got these crackers and just spraying out of his mouth. And I'm like, hey, I dropped the slides on the ground. And he goes to put them on. And wouldn't it just be my luck that he has like hobbit feet? His feet are enormous. Like he's about this tall to me, but his feet are like Shaq. And I'm like, he tries to put the thing on. Not only are they long, but they're so wide, like the Hulk. And he tries to put his foot in this slide and it won't fit, but he's not saying anything. He's just like, thank you so much, thank you. And I'm like, what's your name, man? He's like, Michael, my name is Michael. And I'm like, Michael, these shoes aren't going to work. Come on, come with me. Like, we obviously need to go in together and try the shoes on. So we get in there I drive him across to the shoe store, and we get in there, and I'm like, Michael, what do you want? And he's like, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter, whatever's cheap. And I'm sitting there going, that's good. Exactly. But as I'm sitting there, I thought, this guy, he, like so many of us, needs to see the goodness of God in some form, and I believe that God put me here to do just that. And so I'm like, Michael, whatever shoe you want. And he's like, it doesn't matter. I'm like, well, come on. So we go over, and he's got these long jean shorts and this Guns N' Roses shirt, which is what drew me to him initially anyway. And I'm like, what about some Vans? And they're not that expensive. I'm like, what about these? And he's like, I pointed to some, and I said, Michael, would these work for you? And he's just, again, the crackers are just, he had like a never-ending supply of crackers. And I'm like, would these work for you? And he's like, hell yeah, those will work for me. And I'm like, well, I'm going to get these for you. And he's like, man, where are you from, man? Where are you from? And I'm like, I'm from Oklahoma. And he goes, I knew you weren't from around here. I knew you weren't, because the people here, and he just begins to trash the locals. He's like, you're a good person. He goes, you're a blessing. And he goes, this is a blessing from God, and that's all I needed. I'm not an imposing witness. I like to have an open door, because I'm like, God, I don't know how far you want me to take this. I'm hoping it's just the shoes, but I don't know how long you're going to need me today. So when he said God, I'm like, right. I said, well, Michael, I'm a pastor. And he goes, what? And then he begins to talk to me about all the local churches and how they're all terrible. Here's this homeless man who has the skinny on what they're all doing wrong. And so I go and I buy the shoes, and I'm thinking, God, I don't know how to knife through all of this, but we're going to go where this goes. I buy the shoes, I buy the socks, we go over and we sit down, and as he's trying to put on the socks and shoes, which honestly took about 20 minutes for him to do, because he was just talking, and I gathered that no one's really listened to him for quite some time. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm just smiling, and I'm just listening. And people are walking into the store, and they're looking at us like, what is happening? And he's talking so loud. He is not aware that he's in public, or doesn't care that he's in public, but he's just telling me his story. He's telling me that he was raised in a Christian home, or at least his dad claimed to be a Christian, but his father was incredibly abusive. He's telling me about how he dropped out of high school. He's telling me about the bad decisions that he made, how he started smoking pot, how he's on meth. He's telling me all of this and how his life is broken. He was a boxer at one point. He told me everything. I mean, he talked for a while and told me everything about his life. When he was done, when he got the shoes on, I'm like, let's go, Michael. Where do you want me to take you? And he's like, you don't have to take me anymore. I was like, do you need to go somewhere? He's like, well, I got to go down here about 10 miles. And he goes, if anywhere in between, you can drop me off. And I'm like, I'll take you. Come on, let's go. When we got in the car, he stopped talking, and I told him, I said, Michael, God sent me here from Oklahoma to buy you some shoes and to tell you that he loves you. He's not mad at you. He has a plan for you. And Michael just broke. He broke down, and he's just bawling there in my car, and the crackers just pandemic dust all in my car. And I'm like, Lord, you got a couple of jobs to do today. Protect me and do what you're going to do through Michael. And he's just bawling. But he's not talking to me, he's talking to God. He just starts crying, oh God, God. Out of the depths I cry to you, Lord. Hear my voice. Let your ears be attentive to my cry. This is a cry that many of us have cried, maybe not verbatim, and maybe you haven't been in a situation quite like Michael. But this is not a story for the obvious broken. This is a story really of all of us, and if it hasn't been your story, at some point it needs to be. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with people, and it's that divine moment, and maybe you've experienced this, maybe you've been a recipient of this, maybe you've been the one to share it, where God uses you in a moment, and it's through your words or through someone else's words to you, but it's a divine moment, and they're talking to you, they're telling you that God loves you, and it hits you funny, it hits you right in the heart, and you can tell it's not the person talking to you, it's God speaking directly to you, telling you that he loves you. I've talked to a lot of people and had moments like that, and it's amazing how so many people who seem to have it together and are smiley and happy, but just beneath the surface is a breaking point. And that breaking point is always the same. It's always Psalm 1 and 2. It's that, oh God, have mercy, and it's awareness of sin. It may not even be your sin as much as it is something that has happened to you, but there's an awareness of the brokenness that you experience. The Apostle John talks about being in the presence of God in the book of Revelation. Here's John, who's a follower of Jesus at the end of his life, and he has a vision of Christ, and it says he fell as a dead man. That's our response in the presence of holiness, and when God himself speaks to you and tells you how much he loves you, so often our response is, I am not worthy. I am not worthy. And if you're in a place where you feel stuck in the merry-go-round of unworthiness, it hits you that way like it did Michael. Oh God, have mercy. And this is the beginning of a progression that we're on as followers of Christ, and really hopefully a progression that humanity is on where there's an awareness of sin, but it isn't meant to stop here. But so many of us can live in this space. We don't necessarily think about it or feel it every single day, but it's where we live. Where we don't really move on from this cry of our heart because we feel so unworthy all the time. This is my story. When I was 8 years old, I was exposed to hardcore pornography. It was on a satellite dish in our house, and it was back in the day where you had to tune them like a radio. And I was flipping through looking for something, I don't know, and I found pornography. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what was happening. I knew it was something I wasn't supposed to watch. I mean, I knew some of it, but I didn't know all of it, but it was something that I hid. I went back to it a few times. I don't know how much. I don't have great memory of all of it. But it was something that I hid. And it was like a bone break in my life. The act itself was wrong. But what began to erode things for me was the shame that it produced. That's what sin does. It produces shame. Go back to Genesis 1, or not Genesis 1, Genesis 3. The fall of man, they eat the fruit in shame. They realize that they're broken. And from 8 years old on, this shame began to touch every part of my life. It didn't ruin every part of my life. My life, I wouldn't look back on my childhood and say it was horrible, it was miserable, I was living in a dark cloud all the time, but the awareness of sin and the awareness of shame, I lived unknowingly Psalm 131 and 2. And I stayed there in this space. Have mercy on me, and it began to affect me. It was like a bone break that didn't heal. My son, Charlie, broke his leg years ago. And when he broke his leg, they put a cast on, and when he would walk, he could walk on the cast after the pain subsided. He could walk on it a little bit, but he would have to kick his right foot out because of the way the cast was situated, and it was hard to walk straight, so he would kick his right foot out. And as a result of the break and some of the pain, in order to compensate, he would walk with his foot out like this. Well, we took the cast off, and he's still walking like this. And even now, years later, I have to tell him periodically, hey, Charlie, straighten your foot. Because he has a tendency to let that foot kick out. It's the effect of a break that it's not that the bone didn't heal, but the muscles have yet to kind of pull it back to normal, and that's what it was for me. It was a bone break, and things just didn't go back to normal for me. And I lived in the merry-go-round of, out of the depths, Lord, I cry out, have mercy, have mercy, have mercy. Every time I go into worship, every time I would feel the presence of God, it was always the same. Have mercy on me, Lord. Crying out for forgiveness. But this is a progression, and we're going to move on to Psalm 133 and 4 here. Have mercy on me, Lord, and here's the response. If you, Lord, kept a record of sins, who could stand? There's not a one of us that can stand. There's not a one of us who should feel self-righteous, because if God kept record, not one of us could stand in his presence. But with you, there is forgiveness so that we can, with reverence, serve you. The psalmist says that you are forgiven. The response to the cry of mercy, it shouldn't linger for days or years. But there is a response in Scripture. God does not keep a record of your sin. Says that he forgives your sins so that you can, with reverence or with fear, with respect, begin to serve him and live a life pleasing to him. It doesn't mean that you live a life of perfection, but it does mean there is a way out of the pit. And it might not be a pit of addiction for you. It might not be a pit where you're on meth like Michael, or you're homeless, or everything's falling apart, or even the people in your house know. But it's something in here where you live with this thing that just tells you you're unworthy. And what's funny is, I know that if I were to ask you, do you feel unworthy? A lot of people say, no. Do you believe you're forgiven? Yeah, I believe I'm forgiven. Do you deal with condemnation? I'm amazed at how many people say, do you deal with condemnation? The answer is, yeah, I do. So it tells me there is a gap between what the Scripture says that we're forgiven and the reality we are living in. We're living in our own realities. There's an awareness of forgiveness periodically that produces a lightness. The burden has been lifted, and you live that way. But I always found that burden would come back quickly. That I would experience and be like, thank you, God, for forgiving me. And maybe I would slip back into the pattern of behavior. Maybe it was just the narrative of shame in my mind that I had grown so accustomed to that was louder than this book. But it always brought me back. It's like getting pulled over for speeding. You ever been pulled over for speeding and get off with a warning? I've been pulled over so many times, but I don't get many tickets because I'm a master wordsmith. So I find ways. I look at them, I'm like, please, sir. And I don't know what it is, goodness of God, whatever, but I don't get a lot of tickets. And but I have, gotten lots of warnings. And there's nothing better than the warning, because there's nothing worse than looking in your rearview mirror and seeing the lights. It's like your whole body goes limp and you're just like, oh God, I'm getting pulled over. And it's just like the world's ending. And then the policeman comes up and then they write you, I'm going to give you a warning. It's like a stay of execution. You're just like, oh my God, I have a new lease on life. I'm going to travel more. And then you're like, and then you've never been a better driver, right? When the policeman goes back to his car and gets in it, and then it's time for you to get back on the road, you put your blinker on, and the blinker's on for like 15 minutes, and you're checking your mirrors like 400 times, and you get that good posture. I don't know what it is, like upright 10 and 2, and you're just doing this, and then you begin to edge out, and you're going like 20, 21, 24. It takes you all day to get back up to 65, and you're just like this. But it wears off. By the next day, you're going 80 into 35, steering with your knee. It doesn't stick. That's what I have found Psalm 3 and 4 to be for me. I am forgiven. You come into church, and every week you hear about the goodness of God. You hear that He loves you. And there's a part of you that understands it. And if I were to ask you, does God love you? You would say yes, but then there's still a part that's like, but I don't feel worthy. I'm not accepting the forgiveness in the way that is producing a forward living life in the way where I know I am living a life pleasing to God. It's not just an absence of negative behavior, but that you're living for Him. To me, the key I found to be in verses 5 and 6. I wait for the Lord, my whole being waits, and in His word I put my hope. I wait for the Lord more than the watchman. Wait for the morning more than watchmen. Wait for the morning. I wait for the Lord. You know what I realized? That I wanted God to approach me on my terms far more than I was willing to approach Him on His terms. I met my wife, Summer, at ORU, I don't know, 1997, 1998, something in there. And when I met her, it wasn't hard to fall in love quickly. We met at the end of our freshman year, and we started dating, and it was all systems go. And I wanted to spend every waking moment I could with her. One of the things that I realized about her is that she came from a different place. She came from California. She had a different family culture. And one of the elements of that family culture was being on time didn't matter. Being on time in the George household is a core value. I was raised to be on time. And not just you're going to be on time, it's you're going to be on time or you're out of this family. And there's no greater fear, even more so than the sirens in your rearview mirror, than showing up late. And it isn't that my dad would do horrible things. You just like, oh dear God, you just feel it. Like, we're late. Oh my God, we're late. We got to get there. And so on time. My wife, Summer, not on time. And what she would tell me is like, it's just not a thing. In California, I'm like, so that's the problem. No one's on time. They can't get to the meetings to figure out good decisions to make. So I don't know what the deal is. It's just no one's on time. And so she's like, it's just not, there's just a different culture. It's like, it's around about that time we get there. And I remember waiting in her lobby for 30, 45 minutes, just waiting. We're supposed to meet at 7. She'd come down at 7:30. She'd come down at 7:45. This is pre-cell phone. I can't really get a hold of her. And I'm just like, what is going on? I adjusted my life for her. I adjusted my preferences to be with her. I would call her from my dorm room and tell her, hey, I'm in your lobby. I'm here to pick you up. I would hang up the phone. I would finish watching Wheel of Fortune. And then I would begin to slowly make my way over, and then I would still wait for a few minutes. I adjusted everything for her. I'm still adjusting everything for her because I love her. I meet her on her terms. I have found that a lot of people stuck in the rut of unworthiness are not willing to meet God on his terms. They want him to meet them on their terms. What does that mean? In your word, I put my hope. This book says a lot to those who feel unworthy. There are a lot of verses in this book about those who live condemned. What I found was I would elevate my thoughts of shame and condemnation above what this book says. I would hear it and go, yeah, but this, yeah, but my sin, yeah, but my past, yeah, but the way I feel, I don't feel it, and my feelings are stronger than what this says. And I wouldn't live according to the Word of God. I would live according to the way I felt. And then one day it hit me. If I am going to move forward in life and be who God has called me to be, I am going to have to take this book at face value. I am going to have to decide that what it says about me is more true than what I say about myself. And not only that, every time the thought comes to my mind that I am unworthy or undeserving, I have to deny it, which is work, which is difficult because it has become my native language, and decide to believe what this book says about me. In Hebrews 11:6, Paul says, without faith, it's impossible to please God. I always took faith to mean I'm believing for something, like I need provision, so I'm going to use my faith for that. I need healing, so I'm going to use my faith for that. I need faith just to believe in God. I need faith to believe what I can't see. So that's faith. But if you were to ask me, do you live by faith? I would say, well, yes, if you mean the foundation of belief. But what I've learned is that living by faith is actually the fight of faith in my mind to believe this over my thoughts about myself. I find that a lot of people never get out of that rut. Because we want to claim outside things, external things, but what's going on in here requires faith. Paul says this in Romans 1:17, the righteous will live by faith. Who's he talking about? You. You're righteous. Why? Because of Jesus, not because of anything you've done. But he says you live by faith, meaning faith as a way of life, faith like oxygen. That you will begin to exchange your thoughts for his words. Practically speaking, how I do this, whenever I find myself going down a negative thought pattern, and it's not always something that I immediately recognize. Sometimes, because it's so intuitive to me or native to me, I will go down this road for a little bit, but then I realize I'm experiencing anxiety. I'm worried about this. I'm worried about that. I don't know what's going on here. And I'll ask myself, what is bothering me? What is it? And I identify the thought. I feel afraid that God won't take care of me. I feel afraid that I'm missing it, that I'm missing his voice. I feel the fear that I'm not following him the way I'm supposed to, that I'm walking down the road blindly, and he said way back there somewhere, the turn is here, but I'm just blindly moving forward. I feel that fear. And when I identify that thought, then I go to the Word. And you know how I go to the Word? I Google it. What does the Bible say about fill in the blank? I find scriptures. I write scriptures down on note cards. Not a ton of them, one of them, two of them. And then I read that word. Every time I start to feel that way, I read it. I memorize it. I speak it out of my mouth. This is what the Bible means when it says you take thoughts captive. You don't kick them out. You grab them. You identify them, and then you weigh them against the Word of God. This is the progression of the psalm. Then what you do after you've put your hope in the Word of God is you begin to love God, to love His ways. I wait on the Lord more than the watchmen wait for the morning, more than watchmen wait for the morning. You wait on God, meaning you're aware of God. You're focused on God. You know what the beautiful part of this is? It's worship. It's not just the song, the singing of worship. It's a focus of worship. Worship is focused. What are you focused on? What are you elevating? And many people worship themselves. I'm more interested in what I'm dealing with. I'm elevating my anxiety. I'm elevating my doubt. I elevate my shame above you, God. But it begins to shift when you begin to reorder your thinking by the Word of God. I wait for you, Lord. And this is the best part. And this is, just personally speaking, as I stand here today, it is a great gift from God to me. God has done a lot in me. I'm thankful for it. I'm made aware of that as I prepare for this message, what God has done in my life. And I'm thankful because there was so much of my time stuck. But God has moved me through to this point where the psalmist moves away from his own personal experience and then he begins to encourage people. Israel, put your hope in the Lord, for with the Lord is unfailing love, and with him is full redemption. He himself will redeem Israel from all their sins. He's walked through it himself, and then he begins to share it. You hear it here all the time. God wants to work in you so that he can work through you. There are some of you in this room, you've listened to this message today, and you feel like, you know what? This is good, but I'm not connecting with this. I don't feel that. And I go, good for you. That's wonderful. Thank God. Now go to next move. Why? So that you can get involved in a way where you can begin to share this with other people. Get in a small group. Find people. Relay what God has done in your life. This is what I was doing for Michael. When I dropped him off, I came around, I was like, I'm going to give you a hug, which went against every part of my being that wants to stay clean, that showers 3 times a day. And I'm just like, you know what, Michael? Get in here, bro, crackers and all. And I give him a hug, and he squeezes me so tight. And I tell him, you've got this, Michael. God's with you. Now go do it. Go do it. Go do it. And he says, thank you, F.A. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. I think it means boss, and I'll take it. God wants to use you. He wants to use your testimony. He wants to use your compassion because of what you've been through to reach other people. Those of you that are in Psalm 1 and 2, get out of Psalm 1 and 2. You're forgiven. Get into the Word of God. Begin to believe it over the way you feel, over the way you think. Those of you that have been through that, begin to share your testimony. Begin to tell people, not in judgment. More people need your compassion than they do your information or your great wisdom on how the world is broken and it needs to be fixed. We need compassion in this world. It's the testimony that changes people's lives, not the wagging finger. They're waiting. People are waiting. We're waiting, but we're waiting on the truth that is found in the Word of God.
Hey, thanks for listening today. Our mission at Church on the Move is simple. We want to introduce people to the real Jesus by helping them know God, grow in freedom, discover purpose, and go make a difference in their communities. For service times, to stay connected with us, or to learn more about what we have for kids and students, check out churchonthemove.com or follow us on Instagram. We hope to see you soon.